Are we live, Bonnie?
7:06 and you're now live.
Fantastic. Okay. So thank you everybody for meeting here. We will call roll, though that seems to be a little odd in the days of Zoom, but we'll do it anyway. So Commissioner Ainsworth, I see you here. Commissioner Bischoff.
Bischoff here.
Bischoff, yep, sorry, yep. Commissioner Forster Rothbart.
Present, accounted for.
Yep, Professor and Commissioner Keel.
Present.
All right, Commissioner Pollock.
Present. And I just need to say that I have somebody on my roof.
Oh.
Getting a new roof. I thought they'd be gone. They've been here since 7 and it's very noisy. So I'm going to stay muted most of the time.
Okay, as long as you expect those people on your roof, then I'm not going to worry too much. And then Councilmember Davies.
Here.
Okay. All right. So welcome again, everybody. So I sent out the minutes from the last meeting. There were some minor typographical errors that have been fixed. Is there anything else that anybody wanted to add to it? I can show it if you want, but. Oh, I like that silence. All right. So hearing no other corrections or anything like that, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting, April 14th?
Oh,
Is that you, Paul?
Second.
Okay, so Paul. Second. Okay, all in favor of approving the said minutes, say aye.
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 I think Gina said that. Okay, so that is okay. So any abstentions? I think we got everybody. So, and no no's. So, all right. So the minutes are approved. Thank you very much. Bonnie, is there any petitioners, anybody clamoring on YouTube?
I have one concurrent reviewer and that's it.
Okay. So we will take that there are no petitioners. I do not have any correspondence from anybody outside of the board here. So we'll go on. Does anybody else have any correspondence from anybody? Sometimes, for those of you who are new, sometimes you might get an email or something. No. All right. It doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while. All right, Mark, Councilmember Davies, would you like to tell us what is going on in the city?
Sure, thanks, Kevin. So not too much new to report, but there are some follow-up issues. The last meeting of the Environmental Board, you all raised a concern about the Deep Street, the trees that were located in Deep Street, how they were torn out. So I went to City Engineer Greg Mattice and asked him about that. And he actually, well, actually I raised it in a meeting. They actually did pull those trees out and try to save them as best as possible. And that was the intent, was to replant them in other places. But unfortunately, they were not able to they did not survive. So he is thinking about those types of situations, always trying to look to, reuse things, especially when it comes to trees or other aspects. So while it's not policy, it is certainly practice within what the city is addressing. So I was really pleased to hear that we didn't just kind of throw them in the trash, that we did try to make the effort to save them. But that said, it's a little difficult to kind of pull them out of the ground and then get them to survive that. The only thing that might be of interest to this group directly is that we are looking into changing some of our codes to a form-based code. And I'm going to have to do a little bit more research on that to be able to let you know what a form-based code is. It's actually not coming through my committee, it's coming through the legislative committee. But our code enforcement officer, Stephen Yearley, has put forward comprehensive kind of a a form-based code for the downtown area, which will change the way that we do, we'll change some of our codes downtown. I think it's going to be a good change, but need to read up on that a little bit more. That is probably available on the website. And Gina, I think that's kind of in your area that you enjoy those types of things. So if you want to look at a 122-page document about that form-based code, it's certainly sitting out there to be reviewed. And the way I understand it, that it will be reviewed by the legislative committee, and then they will move it to council at some point, and then council will have the opportunity to discuss it. And if they vote on it, then it will move to a public hearing. And then I believe that's the situation. And then the public will be able to weigh in on the form-based code, and it will be passed by the mayor into law. So that's taking place kind of as we speak, which is probably the most interesting information. And the reason I bring that up is because it's going to have some impact on, we've been talking, the environmental board has been talking a lot about how to address some of the energy issues and things like this from some of our old homes, and this form-based code very well might have some of that in there, but I haven't climbed into the 122-page document to really look at that a little more closely.
It looks like it's coming out of partially it's being advocated by strong towns. So this is probably probably be a useful thing. It looks like it's not so much use as what you want it to look like, the actual form of the place.
Right.
I thought it was like you have to fill out a bunch of forms, so you can tell that I've been in academia. Like, no, oh no, more forms. No, so that looks really cool, Mark.
Yeah, and Steven's put a lot of time into this. To his credit, I think it's kind of moving things in a really positive direction. I really only saying it to you as kind of an early conversation. We have not yet, as a council, had this conversation, but it might be of interest to council members to environmental board members to take a look at and kind of get up to date on what that might be about. The only other kind of more interesting kind of public interest is that the West Street repaving project is a go, and that will be moving forward. So you'll see some West Street disruptions this summertime, but I think for all those who utilize West Street, you're going to appreciate having not shaking your dentures out of your mouth as you drive up and down West Street anymore. So I think that will be a really nice kind of adjustment, especially for the colleges, as well as a lot of the different folks that are coming to visit the campuses utilize West Street to go to both Hartwick and SUNY Indiana. So really pleased about that. And that's kind of one of our big street projects for this year. Any questions?
Anything? Anything about the bees? Oh, and then Gina, sorry.
Freebies.
So about the bees, I will say that I did not worked late and did not climb onto the legislative committee to see if that was discussed yesterday. So I'm not sure where it stands. I do know that they are close to moving a proposed ordinance to council, and that should be done shortly. So I think it has to have a particular time period where it's laid on the desk of council, and then council reviews it and then votes on it accordingly. So I think it's close to being laid on the desk of. So we should have a B ordinance to vote on with perhaps by the next council meeting in 2 weeks.
Okay. Gina, yeah, you had a question, or was it the bees?
Regarding West Street. So the improvements include safety improvements, because we know that someone was hit on West Street by Hartwick a couple of years back, and also thinking about truck traffic and its damage over time. Is it designed better for or widened a bit at all? Is that part of the plan? Are we just patching here?
No, both really good questions, and I frankly do not know the answer because I have not kind of looked at the plans that in depth to see whether or not they widen the road. I don't believe they're widening it, but they are certainly. It's not a patch. They are going to be pulling out infrastructure, water and sewer, and redoing a lot of that. So they're kind of going all the way through. So I imagine that the size is the same. I'd have to look at that a little more closely. Your first question about safety for pedestrians. That's an excellent question. And no, I have not looked at that to see whether or not that addresses it, but that's something I think that we can certainly, I can certainly speak with Greg Mattice about it, since we are a complete street community. What changes to that intersection are being considered that can slow that traffic down and allow for greater pedestrian crossing? Because there certainly, as we all know, anybody who's kind of encountered that particular intersection, it's difficult, and it's really difficult for pedestrians because they kind of blind turn if you're one way or another of that blind turn. So I will certainly raise that with our city engineer and see how we can address that if it has not been addressed, but perhaps it has.
So, oh, yep. Kathy, I think. Yep, sorry.
I'm going to change the topic. Is that okay? Or was there something else about?
I had one follow-up
Well,
question. for you.
is it going to be in regards to what Mark was talking about, or?
But you had said I should ask him about the logging issue in Wilbur Park.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about that when we talk about the urban forest real quick. Oh, actually, you know what? You can talk to him about it now. That's actually be fine.
Before we go change topics, just clarification, Mark, you're talking about the center west intersection?
Yeah, I think that's what Gina was referring to, that a pedestrian was hit there. But yeah, I think
Because I would just add, when you talk to Greg Mattice, the Clinton west intersection is equally problematic.
okay.
As far as
The folk coming down from the hill gain speed whether or not they even choose to. So it's also just not just human, but a physical challenge to design it.
Okay, let me just, Kathy, I'll let you do the one thing, but I want to make, let's say, since we've been talking about Greg Mattice, I did invite him to come to meet with us next month. George used to come to all the meetings and it was pretty helpful. I told him Greg was always welcome. But I thought it'd be a good time, since there's been a lot of interaction with the urban forest crew and a few other people, and now maybe talking about this might be a great time to ask about form-based codes as well, and sort of getting an idea of what we can do as a board to work more in tandem with the city. So I invited him. I also asked Kathy about your question. I haven't heard back yet because it was late in the day today. So, all right. So Kathy, you can go ahead and ask Mark and see if he knows anything about this.
Logging that's going on at the top part of Wilbur Park. I was hiking up there a few days ago, and it's just it's a impassable mess. The black trail at the top, you can't even get on at all because of the deep truck ruts and the trees all down everywhere. Do you know anything?
Yeah, yes, I do. So that's actually not city property. There's a mix in there. Those trails are on a mixture of city property, school district property, county property, and Glenwood Cemetery. And then some of it's actually privately owned. Glenwood Cemetery and some of the privately owned land did logging this past October, November. Yeah, I was a little surprised it did it so late. The ground was soft. We'd had a lot of rains and I think some early snow, and it softened everything up, and they went in there and they made a big mess. But the city does not control that at all, and it was not city property. That said, I can tell you that there are folks within the mountain biking community that are concerned about the trails have been so torn up, especially the wide kind of double track that would run from the east part of the city near the Chinese restaurant there on Main Street, kind of run up over the ridge, kind of down towards the high school. And that's been severely rutted. I mean, and really going to be problematic because there's going to be some drainage issues and mosquito issues. So folks are kind of on their own, kind of going up there and trying to address some of the ruts by raking things and moving things around and try to take the high spot in the middle and trying to tamp that down so at least they can become a little more passable. But that's just kind of the individual effort of mountain bikers and I think some different walkers that would like to use those areas.
I think it's going to take more than individual efforts from what I saw. That, I mean, there are severely deep truck ruts up there that are just mud. Completely mud.
Absolutely. But this is the
across the path.
Sorry, Kathy.
Huge trees that are down across the path. I mean, maybe they haven't finished. I don't know, but
yeah, that's what it's hard to see whether they finished or not. There's still a lot of trees that they have marked that are still standing, so they might very well be going in to do some more logging. But unfortunately, it's on private property, so there's really nothing we can do about it. I think we've been as a community, very fortunate to be able to have used those trails for so long, and we can continue to use them. It's just we're not going to get the luxury of those kind of beautiful, kind of very beautiful little paths through the woods. So we're going to, if we want them, we're going to have to reclaim them on our own. I don't think that the cemetery is going to take any effort to do that.
Well, let me just chime in here. The Susquehanna Greenway Committee walked up there to assess the situation, and we reached out to the county forester. As I understand it, the county forestry department has supervisor responsibility, especially for wetland remediation after logging. And unfortunately, the county forester did not return phone calls over the period of 2 months. So I don't know if there's a point. I mean, it's not a city responsibility exactly, but if somebody from the city can reach out to the county forester and just, I mean, it's not our responsibility, it's the county forest's responsibility, but if we can try to prompt them into action, because they are supposed to, if they're done logging, they are supposed to do some both trail remediation and wetland remediation when they're done.
I can put an email together and see what we can do about that, about addressing it.
Sounds good.
I should also add, and my apologies, I don't recall whether I reported on this at last meeting, but speaking of Wilbur Park, there are a few trees that will be coming out near the tennis courts. I mentioned that last time. Okay, great.
Yep. Okay. So thank you, Mark. I think that's it. So we will go down the list here of our reports. So I know some of you have been very, very busy. So Dave, you want to, or Paul, you want to tell us about the urban forest?
You are correct. There has been a flurry of activity. Paul, you can speak perhaps to the meeting you had with Greg Mattice. I guess it was 3 weeks ago now.
Yeah, it was a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I read over the notes that you had shared with me, and my impression of them is that they have big plans and they have been acting on them. They have established planting sites for many parts of the city, and I do have that list available. And they looks like they have orders, pretty substantial orders in with the nurseries. So it's very encouraging to see that the city has already established quite a bit of momentum forward with doing some serious planting this year. What we're working out right now, and Paul, you can speak to this as well, is what our involvement will be, what our relationship with engineering will be, and just how we're going to sort out that collaboration.
So I actually took 5 pages of notes at that meeting that I went to. I felt like I was a college student, like in the first day of class. There was a fellow there named Fred.
Fred Hathaway, he's the arborist for the city.
Yep, Dave Hutchinson was there. Greg Mattice, is that right? Mattice was there, and also somebody who works with Greg, a man named John Williams was there. And overall, just my general, it was really pretty much an incredible meeting. I never saw so much. I was just very happy to see so much energy around the effort to keep Oneonta treed. It was just remarkable. I was really sort of taken aback with how enthusiastic everybody was. Yeah, and it sounded like any ideas that the environmental committee had, or that Fred or Mr. Hutchinson had, any ideas that they had about trees and where they should be planted and what have you, that the city was ready to essentially just pick up the phone and make it happen like right then. In fact, they tried to do that. Somebody was looking into some trees at a Schoharie nursery, I think it
Those
was.
would be the ginkgo trees, and they are in, and we're going to pick them up on Saturday.
And it was just really interesting. This guy, John Williams, who works for the city, sitting at the meeting, he picked up his cell phone and he called the Schoharie nursery to ask if these trees were there. They weren't there yet, but they were ready to actually get in the truck that day. Send somebody right then to go pick them up. They were like, yeah, we'll go in an hour. We'll just leave right now. We'll send so-and-so on the city truck and go pick them up. There was other conversations about a different nursery and getting some, I think it was oak trees. They're talking about getting an oak tree and planting it in Neowar Park as an Arbor Day thing, but really to potentially honor Gary Herzig's mayor service.
No, they shared with me an invoice with a nursery out in Appalachian, it was a pretty substantial order, but I'm guessing it's only really a drop in the bucket considering what their budget looks like and what they have planned. Which is
$16,000.
What?
I thought I heard $16,000.
$16,000, yeah.
It sounded like any trees that they were talking about replacing the trees on Main Street in Oneonta. I think the ones that are in like those wooden sort of things that right on Main Street. And the city had all sorts of like engineering equipment that they can use to plant trees safely in places where there might be buried pipes or buried electrical wires. They can actually dig the holes with like a hydraulic water thing that like essentially pushes the soil out of the way without damaging pipes. Bottom line is that I was at the meeting and I was sort of very much wowed with the enthusiasm of Greg Matisse and Mr. Williams, his assistant, in terms of really helping out with any efforts anywhere to plant trees in Oneonta. They were just very, very enthusiastic.
Well, we have I have a list of some folks who have reached out to us, either myself, Dave Hutchinson, about requesting trees being planted in front of their yards. So we'll just have to coordinate with the city as much as we need to. And actually, Mark Davies, you forwarded me the email about the Girl Scout Environmental Initiative. And I reached out to Rachel, it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
Her Girl Scout troop is involved with the initiative to plant X number of trees, and they want to know how they could work with us in fulfilling that goal that they've established. So that's another source of volunteerism. So we have that. We have, what was the junior high elementary school, and Tina, right? You have, or Gina, sorry, you have a group at the college as well. Just trying to keep track of all of these potential sources of help. But yeah, it's been busy all of a sudden.
Yeah, Gina.
Exciting.
Gina?
Yeah. Hey, Dave.
Hi.
Of course, our students are not around in the summer, but we can rein them back in the fall.
Okay, right. Yeah.
if we need them.
And fall is also a good time for planting. So I'm sure we'll still be busy when they come back.
I was wondering if we can get some mapping of where trees are going, because we have the question of dispersing the bounty across all parts of the city.
Right.
And so I've seen the list, but a visualization, I don't know if we have an intern that can help do that. I don't know.
That is a good question. But I did a very amateurish survey by looking at Google Earth for where it wasn't sufficiently green, in my opinion. And I just sort of made notes of, some of those addresses, and sure enough, it actually aligned surprisingly well with the planting sites that Mr. Hathaway and Mr. Mattias, so we're on the same page there. So that was good. I feel like I accomplished something.
No, you and Paul had been putting a lot of effort in, at least from the emails that I've seen going back and forth. I don't. Part problem that we have is we get a lot of emails going back and forth, and I don't always know who's going to what and so on. So I'll just repeat this one thing over here. So I did also speak to Greg about the discussions that we had about replacing the getting ready to replace some of the older trees in our parks. And he said that they were going to go ahead and start putting that into on the list of things to include in the urban forest plan that they're developing. So it wasn't on their radar at the time, but it is now, and they said they're going to put that into future forestry plans for the city, is to think about ways of getting ready to replace the bigger trees when their time comes. So
Yeah, and next year we have 20 elms coming, right? If I remember correctly.
yes,
And I had sent this email out as well, just sort of suddenly occurred to me. And coincidentally, this is something that Rachel, now I'm blanking on her last name, with the Girl Scouts. Reisberger, thanks. She brought this up as well, just trying to restore chestnut trees. And I had sent, I think, an email to you folks as well that just suddenly occurred to me, we should be maybe looking at chestnuts for that long-term big canopy replacement plan. It'd be nice to have them back.
Yeah, that'd be great. So I think it is very
Let me
exciting.
pass one piece of information on to you, Dave. I don't know if you're aware, but the Center for American Chestnut, I forget what it's called, but it's a nonprofit that works on regrowing American chestnuts nationally, is actually located in Otsego County.
Is it really?
Yeah. Didn't he gave
I have their contact information, but
Yeah.
they have
send
been,
that email to me.
they have a couple of demonstration projects or demonstration trees. They've been trying to do new hybrids that are disease resistant, and they have some in Lower Riddell Park, among other places.
What do they?
Yeah, I met that guy.
I'll connect you to that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Forgot all about him. Excellent.
So that's all I have for now.
Okay, well, it's quite a bit, so we appreciate that. So that's looking good. The community engagement.
Quick tree
Yeah,
question.
sorry.
No, it's okay. Since we had pollinator goals potentially as well that relate to the beekeeping, but also we had talked about a more bee-friendly city that might relate to trees, not just shrubs. So question, the weeping cherries are so glorious right now too. Everyone loves those. But pollinator connection with trees, if that's part of the plan or not, is my question.
Right. Well, I think at the moment it will be now. My understanding is that it's just in the very beginning stage of actually putting together a kind of master forest plan for the city. And so anything that we come up with, if we send it up their way, I think that they're going to be more than happy to include that in the master forestry plan. Yeah, we can. I'll pass that along to Greg this evening or tomorrow. That's a good idea. We can't forget trees as part of our being friendly pollinator cities. Community engagement. The Facebook page has gone live. It's basically just populated, liked by my friends. So check it out. It's, what is it called? City of Oneonta Environmental Board. Go ahead, and if you're on Facebook, go ahead and like it and tell your friends. I was posting around Earth Day and around Arbor Day. So we've been doing some outreach, and I did get somebody, Walt Baskin from first of all, Valley View had given an idea for a street that needed some trees. So I think I sent that along Myrtle Avenue. You guys is doing that. So anyway, once my plan had been that when the weather got nice, that I would start to do a few videos of some of our parks and things like that. I wanted to take a video walk from Neowa Park to the entrance to, there you go. Thank you, Kathy. Going to New Island Trail, but every time I had a free moment, it's been rainy, snowy, or whatever. So, and I'm waiting for that somebody to move that grocery cart that's been on the side of the road too, maybe before I go and do that. But anyway, if you guys have any photos or video or anything like that that you want to share that you think is going to be part for the city, or you know of something, I've been promoting the Otsego County Conservation Alliance, some of their things. I did something for Arbor Day with the city. So again, this is a thing that I think we can start to put out there, and the more people that see it, the better it is. So that's what, at least my end of the I feel like there was one other thing. Oh yeah, I'll let Mike talk about the other thing that has a minor overlap with community, and it has a major overlap with community engagement, but that's his idea. So I will leave it for him when he's talking about public spaces, because I think it's also very exciting. You guys have done some really cool work this week. This last month, I got to say. So that's all I got for the community engagement. Anybody else do anything with community engagement other than what you've been talking about, Mike? We'll get to that in a second. All right. So I have nothing. Gina, do you have anything to say about energy?
I was just going to say your site looks great.
Oh,
good job.
Thank you. Yes, it's just a picture, but I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So yeah, so this is going to be again. Oh, that's what I forgot to do. I totally was going to put on there, hey, we have a meeting of the environmental board today. And then the 3 meetings that I had the last 3 days. All right, so I don't have anything about energy. I don't know if Gina, if you do, or if you want to go, if you have anything about transportation. I know this is a tough month for us educators.
2 quick things. Sustainable purchasing. I went to a webinar to learn more about the federal practices and the general how-tos. And so I'm learning more about that. And then this great program that the Audubon is sponsoring on EVs, electric vehicles, is taking off. And I'm forgetting the date off the top of my head, but maybe we could link to it from your Facebook creation, because it's both people who own them can bring them and show, people can check it out, and also dealers are going to be there. So it's a community education and you know, what's available now. That's a lot more options for people.
I know I've been keeping an eye on that. That does look, is it this weekend or next weekend? It's coming up soon.
3rd week, I think.
Okay. So a little bit of time. All these pictures of birds on their page, and I can't find. No, actually, they're a great organization. They're really putting a lot of effort into excuse me, into an clean society energy portal, which is probably worth checking out. If you are interested, let me know and I can dig that up. So I think I would like to partner. Oh, here it is. May 22nd.
Okay.
The Maskey Field parking lot. So, yeah. So that is that. All right. Okay, so excellent. Public spaces. Settle in. Mike's got a lot to say today.
Well, Paul and I were talking emailing some about sort of the concept of if you give a place a name, people are more likely to pay attention to it and think about conservation and preservation. And the fact that Oneonta is the city of the hills, but actually not all of the hills in Oneonta have names. And likewise, some of the creeks in Oneonta do not have names. So we just started a little bit of a conversation. I mean, Paul's saying I started the conversation. I started the conversation and he nodded his head. But basically, as a first step, I just did an inventory of all the creeks in Oneonta, and that's the map that I sent you guys earlier. Kevin, do you want to pull that map up? Would that be useful?
Yeah, 1 second. I gotta find it. Oh, that's the American. Okay, you just sent me that. Oh boy, let's see.
It was probably 2 hours ago I sent it.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that it's at the top of my email list. There we go.
I think did I just share it?
Oh yeah, you got it. Yeah, there it is.
Got your back.
Appreciate
All right,
it.
thank you. So as I looked at it, I realized that there are about 20 creeks or branches of creeks in Oneonta town and city that are unnamed. However, they're only, you can see the lightest section is the city of Oneonta in the middle. There are only 2 in the city of Oneonta. And then there are about 18 in the town of Oneonta. So this may be a project that maybe needs to be a cooperation project with the town of Oneonta, or we could just do something about, think about the creeks that we have. The 2 are the one that's labeled number 3, that's just below Chestnut. It's kind of the one that goes through the old rail yard. And the other is a branch of Oneonta Creek that starts at Hunt Pond on the SUNY campus and comes down into Wilbur Park. But then there are many others around. So anyway, what I started thinking was, I don't know what the best way to do it is, but somehow have a sort of public call for nominations for creek names and hill names, which seems like it could serve a good secondary purpose of, getting people aware of the environmental board and our new Facebook page. But then I don't know who would make the decision. I don't know what the process would look like. Maybe basically I looked into it, and USGS says that they will generally accept as the official names of a natural feature whatever the local unit of government declares it to be. So if somehow the people of Oneonta were to name one of these creeks and the Common Council were to approve it, then it wouldn't be a difficult step for it to become official through USGS and show up on Google Maps and wherever else in the world. So anyway, it's not a completely developed idea. I wanted to know what you guys think of this and where to go. I have not yet made a map of all the hills, but that's my next goal.
Well, I think it's a terrific idea. And I was talking to a few people about it just to see, to gauge some interest in it. And I was immediately came to mind, somebody said, well, why not, we have, state birds and state this and that and state trees. Why not do it at the local level and have a state, a state bird, a city bird, a city tree. And, we can make that as part of the community. One idea was, for instance, with the city birds, we could partner with the Audubon Society to come up with a list of appropriate birds for the area, and then we could have the schools pick the bird that they want to nominate, and then we can put that list of nominations out to a vote. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be the most official thing in the world, but I do think that the idea of knowing and naming, or if not naming yourself, at least knowing the names of these things is really important. I think it's a great outreach. So I'm all on board with this.
And I have to
Yeah,
say,
that's a cool idea, Kevin.
Oh, yeah, no, this is, I think, yeah. And I have another thing about that too, but any other?
For Mike, the one thing I would be interested in talking to folks that are anthropologists, frankly, that might have some input about the naming of places that have a history of indigenous people, et cetera. What might be appropriate, or what are some best practices to think about?
yeah, I came to realize that pretty much all of our natural place names are named after early landowners from the early 1800s. Except ironically for, Oneonta and Otsego, that are, that predate the white settlers, those names, but everything else. So yeah, I mean, it's a question that the community would want to think about. Do we want to name it after a natural, a sort of a descriptive name, Black Creek, or Tall Hill, whatever, or do you want to name it after somebody who lived there previously, or something else that we want to celebrate about the community that may not specifically be tied to that specific location?
Well, we also might, I think also what Gino's saying is that we might actually want to do our research and find out if there was a name, right? I mean, most of these places have been named by the people who were here first. So,
right.
What could be interesting is to do some research, maybe contact the Historical Society and see if we have any records of names that might have for some of these places. Maybe we don't know the specific names anymore, but maybe we know about some other kinds of things that were named. It could just be reclaiming some history. It could be acknowledging the history that has been lost. And so I think it's going to be important to do that. I mean, I'm going to be calling up the Historical Society about trying to learn about the history of Neowa Park and some of those sycamore trees. Those might have been there when the river got diverted. That's probably why they are all there in Neowa Park. So anyway, that might just be something to think about. Not because there's a problem with the idea, just like this could be an interesting thing to think about. And so on. Sorry, there's a buzzing here. It's driving me a little bit nuts. So.
Yeah, so I guess my question for all of you is process. Is this something that we want to start talking about on our Facebook page? Is this something that we want to invite the Common Council to think about? Like, I don't know, where do we go to take this just to go from an idea to actually implementing it?
Go ahead, Mark.
I think process-wise, I would agree with maybe making sure, double-checking, triple-checking that there are no kind of earlier names. I think that would be something that a lot of folks on council would ask. This is different. I don't know the exact process. I would imagine it might need to go to a legislative committee first, and then from there brought to council. I think we need to get the city attorney involved in seeing what is the legal precedent for naming hills that we do not own and creeks that we do not, own, if you will. Creeks are certainly owned by so many different people. So I think we'd have to try to get some other thinking about this. And I'd certainly be happy to at least start those conversations now before, before the whole kind of thing is fleshed out, to see what is the role that the city plays in terms of giving names to other places. So yeah, it's an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I think that before we start advertising it on the Facebook page, we'd probably really want to get an idea of what's happening, what the city would, and the lawyer, our city lawyer would think, and all those things. But it still probably is a good idea to get some thoughts together about what this might look like, so that when we present it a little bit more fully to the city, that we have something in place. I like to have things as settled as possible before we present, so that there's less thinking that is involved, right? And there's going to be changes and stuff like that, but if it's a more fully formed idea, then people have a better idea of what it is that they're looking at, and people can understand what might be some of the possible issues. Yes, Dave.
Once we have the legal situation settled out and maybe determine whether pre-existing names are there to be found, one just idea that occurred to me was we could work with elementary schools and get the kids involved with naming. Bring, maybe the teachers would want to have them go out on class trips, and assuming it's not private property with a bunch of kids wandering around, but just, I don't know, crowdsource it.
Right. And I mean, they can also maybe that could be a thing that we can do, and see if they can do some research.
Yeah, that could work too.
I mean, I think that's kind of what I also liked about what I was saying about, like, the city bird, which is has a lot less legal ramifications, obviously. But, and not the pigeon, but, I think it'd be a way of getting, my idea was to get the schools involved, and getting the kids involved.
That'd be great.
And, honestly, with the birds, I want to get like DOAS involved and seeing if they want to go out to the schools. And I think it'd be a great way for them to be able to have that sort of interaction as well. But no, I think this is a fantastic idea, Mike. And I think we should think about how this thing's going to work. How we might want to do that, how we might want to find the information out, the history. Gina.
Just one thought to share is the Haudenosaunee people made decisions based on both the honoring 3 generations back, thinking about the current day, and 3 generations forward. If we think about naming of places, we might want to think about both honoring the past as well as we're making choices for the future, and being a little more intentional about questions like that. It's not just about us and what's the flavor of of the year, but it's a more serious enterprise, especially for a geographic feature, I would think. So those are just my 2 thoughts.
No, those are great. I don't want any like Creaky McCreek face, but I think if we plan this thing out right, and we learn from the mistakes of other public naming fiascos, we should be okay. And I think you're right, Gina, about really trying to approach this as deliberately as possible, and try to think about, I do like that idea of honoring the past, the present, and the future. I think those are some good ideas. So I think this is, like I said, this is why I didn't feel the need to have new business. The emails were flying around a lot this week, this last month. So anybody else have anything that you want to add to this idea? There's another thing that I saw where we could, for our needs, it would be a free app. I think the city would have to get involved with it, but I can dig up the email, I think I sent it to you, Mike, and Paul, where we can put together our own little tours. Or it's an app that you can get on the phone. You can make your own little tour, and it's location based. And so Because that's another idea that I think you guys had come up with, was putting placards by trees and plants and things like that to say what these things are, because again, knowing what something, the name of something makes you attached to it. It's one of the things that drives me the most insane about science, popular science things, is when it's like, oh, it's the pink supermoon, and then they look up and the moon's neither pink nor all that big. And it'd be more important if we were talking about having things of, look up tonight and that star right there, that's this star, and it has this. So I'm much more interested in getting people to connect to nature than just saying, ooh, looky wowie, this is some neat little thing. So thinking about good ways of putting placards up on trees in our parks, labeling various maybe along some of the bike trails, even in Will. We have that Fairyland has come back along there, and so maybe we can also put in our own little placards of, like, this tree that this fairy is taking part in, is also got, and we can make it not out of plastic. Gina.
If you use a QR code, you can also build more deeply, and people could add story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some neat ideas out there. That sounds like a student internship thing to me. I gotta go talk to the CS people, or the computer science people, about that.
Well, Kevin, when you talk to the Oneonta Historical Society, ask them, because I know they developed some sort of historical audio tour of Main Street and downtown Oneonta with some information. I don't think they use it in anything as fancy as this app you're talking about, but they do have sort of little brief recordings about different locations in the downtown.
I did not know they had that. That's cool. All right. So, anything else? Gina.
Channeling a former member here, of plantings on Main Street.
I know nothing about them.
Mark?
Yeah, I don't know either. I can look into that and see where we are with that. I assume the last couple of years we had the garden club was involved in planting, putting those plantings in. I assume they're doing it again this year, but I'll look in to confirm that.
I could volunteer to help if you need people.
Certainly. Let me see if they're doing it. If so, then I think that the last couple of years did use volunteers in addition to the garden club members. So that might be a good opportunity to get involved. And so yeah, let me make a note of that and reach out and see what we can do.
Yeah, I don't know.
And the middle schoolers, because they're still in, that help volunteered.
Yeah, I don't see. This is all. I don't see anything really new going on right now with them. But yeah, no, that's important to get back in. And oh, downtown. Okay, I got it right here. June. Okay, June 9 a.m. downtown planting, rain date. I don't know what that means, but it looks like this is the 2020 schedule. Oh, yeah, they might. I don't know if maybe COVID has kind of messed with their abilities to get out and meet and so on, because their website hasn't been updated since the last fall. So, all right. Well, anything else? Oh, Mark?
Thanks, Kevin. If I could just add one more thing. There's going to be a high school mountain bike race and middle school race this Saturday and Sunday.
and they're actively looking for volunteers. So if anyone on the environmental board or anybody who might be watching is interested, please contact me through my city address, and I can certainly get you in contact with the folks that are organizing that. But it's been a good event. They have some really, really heavy-duty safety, COVID safety protocols in place. So I think it's going to be a well-run, well-organized event. But it's good to see our trails being used and being enjoyed by a bunch of young people. I should add that's going to be up at the high school and using the trails directly behind Wilbur Park.
Oh, is this why there's all that fresh spray paint along
Yes,
those trails?
that is why. My nephew's racing that league.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
Oh, Mark, when is the date for that?
This
Friday.
Saturday and Sunday.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, both days.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're doing setup on Friday. I don't know if there's any needs for setup, but there have been, so maybe there is some need there. Breaking down on Sunday afternoon, but Saturday and Sunday are the races. I think the middle schoolers go off on Saturday and the high schoolers on Sunday.
That's correct. They used to do it all together, but with COVID, they split it up.
Yeah, pre-COVID, it was a great event, and it was really neat to see. I don't even know how many riders were out there, and their families all here in Oneonta having a great day. It was just a really great event, and it introduced a lot of folks to our community, and that was really cool to see.
Yeah, there was definitely some good feedback for the event and for Oneonta as a place to hold it, just from my very casual interactions.
Yeah, it's cool to hear.
Excellent. Yeah. So, okay. So next week got a bunch of stuff to work on. So this is great. Next month, I'm going to try to get, like I said, Greg Mattice to come and talk a little bit. There's been a lot of changes in the city. We've gone from, one model to another model of governance to yet another model of governance in the 9 years that I've been here. So getting to know Greg a little bit better, for those of you who don't know him, and just to find out how we might be able to work better. So if there's anybody else that maybe certainly not, I don't want to try to make our meetings go much longer. I'm happy this one's coming in an hour. In the future, if there's somebody that you think that we should invite and just listen to and talk to, let me know and I can try to schedule that. We've had some really good conversations. And I will do always my best to tell them that we're not going to grill them. That is a friendly group of people. Sometimes they feel like they're being put on the spot. So anyway, all right. So there's done with the business. So we can call this a night. Meeting will adjourn at 8:04 p.m. So thank you, everybody. Have a great evening and get through the grading, all of you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yep.
Thanks. Talk to you all soon.
Be well.
All right.